So we're going to move on to item 7.3 and see how we do. Consideration of Recovery and Revitalization Plan for Lake County and American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, Spending Priorities Statement. CAO Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Deputy CAO Matthew Rothstein and I are going to present this item together. And then we also look forward to the comments from you and Supervisor Pyska, who both served on the committee with us that helped to develop this plan. As your board is aware, thanks to the tireless work of our extraordinary federal legislative representatives and others, Lake County has been allocated over $12.5 million in state and local fiscal recovery funds as a result of the passage of what you've heard referred to as the ARPA plan. That stands for American Rescue Plan Act. These funds can be used for numerous qualifying purposes, such as overcoming negative economic impacts resulting from the COVID pandemic. They can be used to support the recovery and revitalization of hard-hit communities. They can be used to fund public health expenditures associated with pandemic response, and as well for investing in water and sewer infrastructure. This really represents a major significant turning point for Lake County to have this opportunity. So the ad hoc committee, which I mentioned before, included Chairman Sabatier, Supervisor Pyska, myself, a number of department heads and county administrative and finance staff, and over a several-month period undertook the extensive process to identify needs appropriately matched to the funding allocations I just reviewed. And every county department head was granted an opportunity to weigh in on the needs they viewed as qualifying for the use of these funds, and they also shared their priorities with us. So the committee members agreed in general that spending should be intended to have a transformative effect on Lake County communities, and that should be our primary area of emphasis, since it's such an extraordinary opportunity to have this amount of funding, and that we should also look to prepare our local government organization to more flexibly and efficiently serve the public for the years to come. So for the priorities that we're going to outline here, we anticipate at this point that they will take all of the funding, $12.5 million and change. And unfortunately, not all of the needs identified can be met. But we do anticipate that this plan that we hope you will adopt today is really a starting point to get ourselves started. And we would anticipate being back before your board at various future intervals to make adjustments, because not all of the areas that we're going to review with you are fully fleshed out. It's going to take more work to determine how much funding is needed in certain areas. So you will see actual expenditures begin to come forward in your various budget approval processes, some of them possibly as early as mid-year budget, which you will take up in February 2022. So we're very excited to present this plan and look forward to your statements. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Matthew.
Thank you very much, Carol. It is my privilege to introduce the first three of four categories of action that drive these recommended American Rescue Plan Act spending priorities.
Can I interrupt real quick?
Yes.
Can you make that a little bit bigger for those in the Zoom room to be able to see?
Sure.
And Sam, can we make sure his volume is sufficient? It seemed a little low.
And the size is perfect.
Okay. And I can also speak up a bit.
Thank you, Matthew.
So first, we commit to promoting recovery and revitalization in Lake County by building sustainable communities through housing and long-term planning. A $3.8 million investment is recommended in this category, serving the following Vision 2028 principles: continue rebuilding in all efforts to recover from our recent disasters and grow our economy and spur creation of quality local jobs. Priorities in this category of action include comprehensive housing strategic planning, enhancing support for housing priorities, promoting development of our construction trades workforce, and strengthening community partnerships to meet housing and related needs. So why these priorities? Every Lake County resident should have access to safe and affordable housing that provides a quality environment conducive to maximizing their ability to contribute to their community. Too often, we've taken a piecemeal approach rather than zooming out, systematically identifying our needs, and moving forward in a strategic manner. ARPA funding will help us end this cycle and target investments to add housing supply and rehabilitate existing homes. Secondly, we commit to promoting recovery and revitalization in Lake County by removing barriers to childhood success and dignified aging. A $2.33 million investment is recommended in this category, serving these Vision 2028 principles. Invest in Lake County's richest resource, our people. Enhance public safety and promote the well-being of every Lake County resident. Priorities in this category of action include solidifying our senior centers for decades to come, strengthening services for children 5 and under, making library services even more accessible, filling service gaps in communities that don't currently have a library branch, ensuring COVID-19 testing and the vaccination availability in Lake County, and applying lessons of this pandemic to build a more resilient future. By supporting these priorities, we recognize that well-being is not something that we develop once and then have forever. It is a constant effort that requires services and supports at different stages of life. ARPA has given us an opportunity to help our children and elders recover from the disruptions of COVID-19 and thrive in new norms brought by rapid social change since 2020. Thirdly, we commit to promoting recovery and revitalization in Lake County by acting now on water and sewer infrastructure projects.
Matthew,
A $3 million investment is recommended in this category based on the following Vision 2028 principle: improve our infrastructure. The priority in this category of action is completing a small number of qualifying infrastructure projects. The American Rescue Plan Act allows funding to be used for water and sewer infrastructure, and acting now on a few small infrastructure projects can make a positive difference without overburdening Lake County's ratepayers. For your awareness, Board, Scott Harder, our Special Districts Administrator, is here to answer your board's questions on water and sewer infrastructure projects following this presentation. And now Carol Hutchinson will present our fourth category of action. We commit to promoting recovery and revitalization in Lake County by preparing to effectively meet emergent public needs.
Thank you, Matthew. I didn't mean to talk over you there for a moment, but I wanted to ask you to advance the sheet there. Thank you so much. Okay. Could you back up and show the one you just reviewed too, because we couldn't see that during your review, in case anyone would like to see that. What he just spoke of in number 3, it's sort of split between this page and the next page. So if you can scroll down just a little bit more. Thank you, Matthew. Okay. And so certainly last but not least at this point, how do we tune up the engine and become better able to meet the needs of the public? Clearly the public needs more from us than we have historically been able to deliver. And so what is recommended here in terms of priorities is continuing the modernization of customer service in a variety of ways, enhancing and hardening our information technology infrastructure, making public facilities more hospitable, and stabilizing our pension contribution costs. If the pandemic has taught us anything, it is that we have to be open to new ways of doing business, developing the capacity to flexibly respond, quickly reform practices, and provide the best possible level of service, despite whatever barriers may come, is a modern imperative. Technological threats are more numerous than ever, for example, and can threaten our business continuity if we are not sufficiently proactive. Institutional knowledge, understanding, and experience are also key to meeting emergent needs in our present environment. We need a workforce that is stable, nimble, and has the tools to adapt. Utilizing ARPA funding to support these critical areas of priority will help us to be more effective now and in the future. And back to you, Matthew.
Thank you very much, Carol. Staff recommends that your board approve this ARPA spending priorities framework today. Like other long-term planning documents, revisions may be brought forward in the future, but it is important that we have our marching orders in place so we can immediately work with departments to develop specific allocation recommendations. We want to thank all who contributed to the development of this framework, and that importantly included our chair, Supervisor Sabatier, and Supervisor Pyska. Before we consider comments from the full board and the public, Supervisors Sabatier and Pyska, do you have anything further to add?
Yes. Thank you, Matthew. You'll note that you don't see broadband investments in there, and that was something that we originally had planned, but in the spring, there was talk of broadband resources coming from other places. And so as we wait to see how all of those unfold, we feel really confident that those needs are going to be met through other sources. But again, everything is going to be fluid for a little bit. I wanted to highlight some of the examples in the second priority, and that is removing the barriers to childhood success and dignified aging. So some of the things that we're hoping to invest in is the Help Me Grow software and enhancing home visits for First Five, funding a mobile library vehicle, COVID-19 response support, assessment of all senior centers in Lake County to set them up for future success, and purchase and renovate Kelseyville Senior Center to facilitate broader use and enhance community appeal in the same manner as the Middletown facility, but in a smaller sense. During our meetings, it was noted that we had a void in service in the Kelseyville community in District 5 surrounding library and senior services. So filling that void, we felt was a moral obligation brought into heightened focus through the lessons we've learned through the pandemic. So those were the priorities that I really felt were important, is to focus on our children and our seniors and use this opportunity to set both of those groups that have really, as we move through the pandemic, we saw how those two groups really need further support in our community. That's it.
Thank you. I really like how we started our conversations here. We kind of threw everything at the board, everything that was kind of a vision of what we needed to get to where we want to be. And we started out with a very large list. It was actually a very difficult list to go through, and really appreciate the work that Mr. Rothstein has done to really narrow it down into a very legible document, because it was kind of all over the place to begin with. We had conversations with some different nonprofit agencies. First Five came to us and discussed what their needs were to see if that was possible for us to be able to support. And what I really see when I look at this document is government is not meant to build what our vision is. Government is meant to build a foundation for others to build what it is that we're going to need. We don't build businesses, things like that. We create the platform that promotes and is conducive to those types of things happening. And also providing a healthy environment where things are accessible in an equitable way is really important. I know that there was one that we discussed and is not on the list. And again, this list is kind of a moving document, a living document, in the sense that it's what we've put together for now, but as infrastructure funds get released, as broadband funds get released, maybe there's some things that need to be changed based on what our better understanding of what's happening with some of these bills. But I do know that there's a large conversation we did have with public health, which was the IFT problem. It's hard to know even what that would look like as far as a solution. That's still being reviewed. And it's hard to know what dollar amount would need to be placed on that. And so it is not on the list at the moment because we don't even know what that would look like at this moment in time.
Could you just clarify for the public
Oh,
that may
sorry.
not know IFT? We do, but
Yeah,
just
so, thank you for that.
clarification.
IFTs is interfacility transfers, so that when you go to Sutter or Adventist Health, it is the potential of having capacity to move you from one hospital outside of the county to an outside of the county hospital. And it's an issue that we're working on. There's a lot of conversations regarding that, but we don't want to put things that are completely unknown to us until those conversations can actually prop up with options and solutions, and possibly something could come back to this list. But at this moment, it was unsure. I know that also the entirety of number one is very much in line with some of the conversations that are happening over at the EDTF, the Economic Development Task Force. Because the Economic Development Task Force is not a task force that has a budget, and therefore this would potentially be some of the funds that could be utilized to tackle our housing issues that we wish to discuss and figure out how to resolve. I appreciate the document that's before us, and I can't wait to see how it is that these items are going to slowly morph into more concrete items. Again, it's going to take time. Some of these we can get started on right away, which is why it's in front of us today. But a lot of these is going to be a lot more discussions and a lot more conversation with our state and federal partners to figure out how we're going to be able to use these funds to leverage their funds to be able to really accomplish our tasks. It's exciting. It's definitely a blueprint for what our future will be. And I'm looking forward to continuing on this mission to make sure that these things occur.
Mr. Chair, I should add that these funds need to be allocated approximately 2 years from today. And that sounds like a long ways off, but it's not. There's a lot of work to be done to figure out how to best use these funds. And so that in itself is a tall task. And that's why we're so happy to bring this plan to you now, because we need to get busy.
Yes, 2024 is our deadline. And so with that, I'm done. Is there anything further from CAO Hutchinson or Matthew Rothstein?
Just thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for all your work.